Hi, I'm John Ficarra. Welcome to Ficarra Classic, and I have something to admit. I have a Porsche 928 problem. And when I mean a problem, not one, not two, not three, but I got 4 Porsche 928s. And I haven't done anything with them in a couple of years. Now, you may have seen my video about these on VinWiki Car Stories, so I thought I'd fill you in on what they are, how I got them, and what we're gonna do with them coming up real soon. So let's just dive right in, and I'm gonna start with the first car that I got. Now, this is how it all began. This was the unicorn car I was looking for. It's a 1978 Porsche 928. Now, it's obviously not in fantastic condition. It's not a perfect car. I didn't want it to be. I wanted something I could restore. It may have 1 or 2 paint issues, and a few electrical issues, and a few, well, it's got lots of issues. What I was looking for was, I always wanted a 928. I've had one before, but I knew what I wanted. I wanted a first-year car. I wanted a Euro spec car. I wanted one with a manual transmission. I wanted one with no sunroof because they have these tiny little sunroofs which are absolutely useless and take up all the headroom. And most important, it had to have a Porsche interior, which I'll show you in a second. And there's not a whole lot of those around. This one popped up in Ohio. He actually had it listed as a 79. Vin said it was a 78. First year cars to me are really important. And the reason that is, this is the car that came off the pen of the original designer. Years later, they added wings and spoilers and all kinds of stuff, but this is the purest version of a 928. I love first year cars. So I found it, I got it for, I don't know, 4,500 bucks, 5 grand, I forgot. It's been 2 years. I bought this 2 years ago. Yes, even I buy projects that take a while to get started. But it's actually physically in really good shape. It's relatively straight, has the original phone dial wheels. I love the phone dial wheels, but we're probably gonna replace those with bigger phone dials so I can put bigger brakes on it. Because the idea for this car really is that we're going to update it without changing the way it looks. I want better brakes, I want more power from the engine, but I want it to look like a 78. I don't want to screw with it at all. So if you come over here, you can kind of see what's left of the Porsche interior. This car was a Texas car, and it is really a hot mess inside. You know, this thing has been through the ringer, but you see the Porsche. The Porsche was this psychedelic, crazy checkerboard, and it's so amazing when it's intact. But I've got a lot of work to do in here. Man, it has some great bones. It really, well, some great bones. It really is going to be a fabulous car. So I bought it. I had it shipped out here. We took a look at it, and I immediately went on Facebook, of course, and said, I found a fantastic version of the 928. And this is kind of my dream car. So a friend of mine, Tom Pervasi, who we're working on his 914-6 IMSA car right now, he writes me, he goes, I've got a buddy in San Jose who's got a 78 automatic Euro car, and it would be a great parts car. I'm like, great. Now, when you work on old cars like this, parts cars are valuable. The reason for that is I could spend days or weeks or months trying to find a little broken piece of plastic or whatever. I could just go out to the parts car, grab it, get everything I need off the parts car, and probably sell the parts car for as much as I bought it for when I'm done. So down to San Jose do I go with Mechanic Matt to look for the parts car. And what's funny is, remember I said the other one was listed as a 78, and it was a 79, it was a 78. This one he thought was a 78, it's actually a 79. It's in a great color. But it definitely has had better days. It's better, it's seen better things. The paint's faded, you know, fallen apart on it. But still, a completely intact 928. The only real difference from my car is that this is an automatic. and I'm not worried about that at all. This also, interestingly enough, though, has a Porsche interior. So, you know, it's a different type of Porsche. They made Porsche in different colors. This is the Porsche that was black and white with, you can see the black bolsters, the black and white Porsche. The other car is brown Porsche, so it has brown bolsters and brown. They made a few different colors of it, but this car is actually pretty good shape. He was driving it for a long time and just parked it. So we got down there, he says, car doesn't run, but you're welcome to put it on your trailer. Well, mechanic Matt and I bought an extra battery and some few tools, and we got fiddled with it, and it fired right up. And the look on the guy's face, really nice guy, architect, really was proud of the car, but you could tell he thought it was dead. And we drove it on the trailer, and I'm like, great, I've got a parts car. I've got, you know, the car, my dream car, a parts car to make it whole, because I intend to take this down to the tub and make it perfect. So I got everything I need done. Well, that's obviously not the end of the story. I go online, I go to Facebook again. I said, hey, look, there's a dog. Hi, Pippa. Everybody say hi to Pippa. Hi, Pippa. Yes, okay. That is your gratuitous dog moment for the video. Okay, so I go on Facebook and I'm like, I have my dream car, I have my parts car. This is great. I went on a couple 928 forums and one guy goes, I've got a parts car you can have. You didn't even have to buy it. Because I bought this one for 2,500 bucks. I'm like, free parts car? Now, I've turned down free cars before. There's a good reason to turn down free cars. But a free 928, he said it was relatively complete. Again, a 78 American version. So it's another early car. Turns out it's number 56 of the US run. Now, they ran consecutive numbers, Euro. There was a Euro 56, 0056, and there's an American 0056. So that's not the 56 made, but it's a very, very early car. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I got to go go get this. So mechanic Matt and I pack up once again and head down to Santa Cruz and get this beauty. Now, this one's really what you would think is a parts car. Now, I haven't uncovered any of these cars in months, but this is a 78 American 928, against first year. It's pretty rough, but really restorable. If somebody wanted to take this car and restore it, they'd have a very early first year car. So when we're finished taking the bits off of it, it might actually be a viable car. It may not be a parts car someday, but it's everything's kind of moved around inside. The seats are actually loose. The nice thing is this guy had mice on his property, so he took the interior out of the car and he actually brought the seats and stuff inside to make sure that it was okay. So it's complete. It's actually, of all the pieces for it, which is gonna be nice, because like knobs like this, these kind of things are hard to find, and especially in original condition. So if we have a better knob here than on the other car, I'll put it in the other car. So boom, I've got another parts car, free parts car. While I'm there, this guy is like, hey, you want to look inside my garage? I'm like, sure. This was parked outside. Inside his garage are 3 more 928s. He had his daily driver, he had a track car, and he had a car that was sitting in the corner with the engine out of it. He's all like, would you be interested in that car? I'm like, I have all the parts cars I need. I've got 1 car, 2 parts car. He goes, no, you really need to look at this car. I'm like, do I? Do I really? Of course I need to look at it. I'm not gonna like leave his house and not look at it. So he's like, you gotta make me an offer on this car. I'm like, why? What makes it so special? Well, what's so special about it it was worked on by a company called Devic, and they were down in the Bay Area. They're out of business now, and they were the guys for hot rod parts for 928s. They did suspensions and, you know, coilovers, brake kits, engine kits, superchargers, all kinds of really, really cool stuff. And stuff you can't get anymore. Like every once in a while, you'll see a Devic part pop up in the eBay, but you can't just go out and buy them. And they sell for a bundle. Like their headers go for thousands of dollars. So I was like, okay, let's take a look at the Devic car. Now the Devic car, he actually had repainted. This was kind of his pride and joy. He dropped at Devic, and I've got the receipts, I think about $40,000 into this car. It's a bit dirty from sitting underneath the cover, but it was a really nice car. You can see the stupid little tiny sunroof that I don't want on any cars, but it's a manual transmission. It's a 1985, so it's not exactly like my cars, but the parts on 85s will work on 78s. They didn't change them all that much up to this point. So this car, I look at it, it has the coilover suspension, the Devic coilover suspension. It also has the S4 brake kit. Now the later Porsches, the S4s, had bigger, badder brakes, and you could retrofit them with a kit on the earlier cars. And just to find these kits anymore, they're thousands of dollars. So I was like, that's cool, that's cool. And the engine, although it's out of it, has the headers, has all kinds of trick things. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tempted. He's like, make me an offer. Okay, $2,500. And he, no. And I'm like, listen, I bought my other parts car for $2,500, and I appreciate you giving me this parts car, but that's kind of where I'm at. He's all, oh, it has, you know, these custom forge line wheels I had made for it, and all kinds of trick things. And I'm like, I really don't need another parts car. So he's like, make me a serious offer. I said, no. So I drove home. I get home, there's a message on my machine. He's all like, I need to move in 3 or 4 months, and I need, you know, to get rid of more 928s. Make me an offer. So I was like, it's still $2,500. He calls me like the next month. You got to make me a serious offer. And the next month, and he just keeps calling. The best part of negotiating is when you don't have like any desire for something, you usually are going to win. If you're not emotionally attached to what you really want, you're probably going to get it. And I really didn't want it, although I kind of wanted it. And so he finally calls me up. He goes, I have to move. I need you to make me a serious offer. So I'm like, $2,500. And he's like, no, that's insulting. I've got $40,000 into this. So he's like, $10,000. I'm like, no. He's like, $7,000. No. I'm like, $5,000. It was the easiest negotiation in the world. No. $4,000. No. Okay, $2,500. So mechanic man and I back up and we go back down to Santa Cruz and pick up the Devic car. So now I have 4 928s. Now, none of them run. The dream car, the car I want to keep, did run when it came, but it's been sitting for almost 2 years. It's not going to run. We probably can get those 2 cars running. So what do you do now? I've got 4 928s. Well, here's the plan. We're going to take my car in, put it on the rack, and give it a nice once over as far as kind of just finding out exactly what it needs, what it's missing. And then we're going to bring the Devic car in right next to it and take off all the cool Devic parts off of this and see if they fit on that. Once we've got the swap complete, then we'll reassemble the Devic car. We've got the engine in there. We're just going to put it back together and sell it as a non-runner. Somebody's going to love this car. It is beautiful. So we'll get rid of that. We'll keep the other 2 parts cars. So when we finally disassemble this and take it down to nothing, we'll have these 2 parts cars to go. But most likely, I will get rid of the early car first as soon as we know what we need for this car. Because ideally, 1 parts car, 1 build car is a good ratio. So that's it. That's how you end up with 4 928s for, I guess the total price was like $10,000 for 4 of them. Now it's time to see how much money I'm going to have to spend to get this one to be my dream car. So the next step is Mechanic Matt and I are going to push these into the garage and get to work. Now, you know I can't finish a video without a little history. So we're going to head off into the studio and do a little history on the Porsche 928.
Okay, so obviously I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos on this 928s as I work on them, and I'll be giving you history as we go along. But for those of you who don't know anything about 928s, let me give you a quick primer on it. Design began on them in 1971. They had kind of prototypes and stuff built up by 73. It was put on the back burner in 74 during the oil crisis because they didn't know if like a big GT car was going to sell during that time. And they wanted to get the 924 to market as their affordable car before the 928. So the 924 took the lead at that point. The 924, of course, being the Audi Volkswagen project to replace the Karmann Ghia that they gave up on, but Porsche had helped design, and Porsche took over as their own car, and that was going to be their entry-level car. The 928 was going to be their most expensive car. So 77 comes, and they finally have the finished vehicle, and it comes out of the Geneva Motor Show, and it's a huge hit. In 78, it sells for the first time in the showrooms. It wins the European Car of the Year, and I think it's the only sports car that ever won that award. And it would go on to be built for 18 years. And it was just staggering for any one model, any one design to go on for that long. And as you can see, my early cars are very simple. There's not much to them. They're as the pen came out from the designer, but they got more elaborate later on. So you'd have the early cars, my 928, then 928S, then the S4 when they came out with a 32 valve engine. They had a Club Sport version, then they had a GT version, then they finally, at the end and towards the 90s, they came out with the GTS. Now the GTS is kind of the unicorn car right now that's worth 6 figures if you can find a GTS with a manual transmission. Early cars were built majority manual transmissions, but they knew that it was going to be more of a luxury car, so they mostly moved into automatics as the years went on. So later cars is very few manual transmissions. So the GTS, if you can find one with a manual transmission, yeah, they're 100 grand now. The early cars, not so much. Still affordable for guys like me. Now, what made the 928 special? It was a clean sheet design. So it wasn't based on any Porsche before it, where the 911 and the 912 were based on, technology from the 356, and the 356 was based on technology from the Volkswagen Beetle. Let's face it, right? So they wanted to build a new GT car. They built one with a V8, which fit the US market perfectly. So they had to build a V8 from scratch. There was talk originally of a V10 by taking 2 of the Audi 5 cylinders and putting them at the crank, which would have been awesome. But no, they went with a V8. Excellent choice, excellent motor. Early motors were 4.5 liters. They eventually would go to 4.7, 5 liters, and finally 5.4 liter engines towards the end. There's a lot of variance from the beginning to the end of the cars. So as we work on my cars, I'm going to show you the differences between the early and late cars and some of the cool technology that went into them. They had 50-50 handling, thankfully because of the engine in the front and a transaxle in the rear. They had a really cool rear axle called the Weissach rear axle that had kind of passive steering built into it because of these rubber fittings in it. And what that meant was there was a little toe in, on and off the gas, the rear would kind of steer itself. So you could drive the car with the steering wheel, the front end, and you could steer the rear end with the throttle, and you can make these cars do some really silly things. The center of gravity is kind of right in the middle of your thighs, so they'll rotate perfectly. Oh, they handle great. I'm going to preach about them as we go. And other cool things about it, the headlights. Now people are kind of on either side of the fence about the headlights. They flip up. They were kind of the idea was taken from the Lamborghini Miura, which is really one of the most beautiful cars ever made. But when you put them on a Porsche, people are like, oh my gosh, they're flip up headlights. But I love them. I think they're really cool. We'll talk more about the headlights later. one of the breakthroughs of the car were the bumpers, believe it or not. If you're not old enough to remember what happened in the early 70s, cars were beautiful in the 60s. They had little chrome bumpers. Then the US government's all like, no, we want 5-mile-an-hour bumpers. And these cars sprouted these horrible brick bumpers in the front and rear. I mean, even the Lamborghini Countach, which is stunning, in the US got these like park bench bumpers front and rear. Porsche just jumped right over that. And they built one of the first cars with completely enclosed bumpers front and rear, where it's just plastic. It makes the car seamless. Now, nowadays, all cars look like that. And we assume that, you know, oh, that bumper is just going to kind of squish and squish out again. But back then, that was it. That was spaceship technology on the 928. And it made the car look seamless when you look at another car from the same era, not clunky at all, just beautiful teardrop shape. It's a gorgeous car. So you got a car with an 18-year run and a lot of different things going on. So as we do these videos, I will hopefully be able to give you a little bit more information. So stand by. More videos on their way, not just on 928s. I will be doing more of my geek videos for you. Please like and subscribe. And I'll see you soon on Fakara Classic.